Megan's father is the real problem here. Because ever since their previous conversation 3 days before the wedding, Thomas Markle's attempts to reestablish contact with his daughter had failed. So Thomas had continued to try to contact Megan. Over and over and over he had tried. But she was ignoring all his calls, all his texts, all the things. She had no use for dad, please. In fact, even as he was trying to get in touch with her, suddenly her phone just went dead, and he assumed that she must have changed her number. And this was devastating to him, because now he had no way of getting in touch with the person who he had devoted his midlife to and beyond. His life had been about Megan since she was born, okay? So this is like almost 40 years of his life have been dedicated to this human being. She didn't even send him a Father's Day card this year, and that was huge, because she had always sent him a Father's Day card. The thing is that Megan followed a pattern that psychologists define as idealize, devalue, and discard. So she had idealized her father until he could no longer be of value to her. She devalues him, and then she discards him. And in all of this, because Thomas couldn't get in touch with Megan, he continued to try to reach out to Jason Knopf. Jason also was ignoring him. Jason has never actually been somebody that he could rely on for help in this situation. Nobody at the palace ever answered Thomas Markle. So if he couldn't get in touch with his daughter, that was that. I mean, he never was going to be able to get in touch with anybody. Amid much agonizing, he blamed Doria for poisoning their relationship. After all the support he had given her over the past 40 years, he believed that Doria had betrayed him. As for Megan, he remembered her small hand clasping his as they walked to the ice cream shop, and her excitement as he praised her school acting. He could not understand how that love had turned to hatred. Gazing at the sea, he wondered if she had any fears that her own children would treat her with such hostility. Perhaps as revenge for how she treated her father. Isolated and mocked, his bitterness grew towards those who had ridiculed a hard-working, acclaimed lighting director. I wasn't going to be put away, he recalled. See, okay, so he's going to say some things, by the way, in this chapter, Thomas Markle is. Buckle up, you guys, because he's got a couple of screws loose himself, all right? Let's call a spade a spade. He's going to say some things that are wacko jacko, so just be ready for that. Because his bitterness is just completely and totally poisoning him as well. And this is what I'm saying. I am not saying that he couldn't be totally and completely aggrieved by Megan's betrayal of him. Megan wants to say that her dad betrayed her. It's so interesting that she should project like that when she is the one doing all the betraying. But he is allowing this whole thing to completely and totally define his twilight years. And I don't know how a person gets past this kind of heavy weight unless they've got something else that is bigger and more important to them. So ultimately what I'm saying is his worship of Megan, and now he's finding out that she's not quite the goddess he thought she was. Now what is he going to do? He's built his entire identity upon this person who has now betrayed him and abandoned him. And so what altar is he supposed to worship at now? People are going to find something to worship. It can be their job, it can be their children, it can be their friends, it can be money, it can be any number of things. But all of those things are eventually going to let you down. Not usually as spectacularly as this, but when you pin everything on something that cannot hold up the weight of your idolization, it's going to crumble. Usually, like I said, it's usually not going to be this bad, but anything that you look to that is supposed to provide this elevation of heart, mind, and soul. Thomas was looking to Megan to make him feel like he was worthy of he was a worthy person. Like he looked to how he had fathered her and been a parent to her to make him feel worthwhile. But she's her own individual. So when she decides to abandon him, what is he now supposed to do? Now that he's pinned his identity on how he had fathered her. Well, his only recourse in that situation is to be bitter about it. He doesn't have anything bigger that he's been holding on to. Unexpectedly, on June 18th, Thomas Markle appeared on ITV's Good Morning Britain. Furious about his betrayal as a drunk living in squalor, he had agreed after lengthy negotiations to give his first live TV interview. He would be paid £15,000. Since the wedding, he explained to Piers Morgan, despite being very forgiving about the photographs, Meghan had ignored him. And I think that's very interesting that he's still claiming to the world she's been very forgiving about the photographs. Okay, again, cognitive dissonance. Is she being forgiving? I don't care if she said to you, I'm not angry. Her actions would state otherwise. You don't have to defend this person. The sooner you get into the reality that this person is not a caring, loving individual, the better off you'll be, because then you can begin to heal from this massive betrayal. But if you're still wanting to be like, she's very forgiving, I can't understand why she's doing this. She's forgiven me. She hasn't, though. She has not forgiven you. Okay? And you're going to have to make your peace with the fact that she's a nightmare now. And then he says this, and I find this to be very interesting. I put a question mark here because this is a very question marky sort of statement. And it kind of shows that when Tom Bauer said that Thomas Markle was a very proud man, I think that this is a statement that would be very descriptive of this. Now, I've seen in the comments people are like, well, I think Thomas Markle is a narcissist himself. Well, we just throw that term around like it means nothing. There is a 5-point criteria in order to be a narcissist, and I don't think he follows all those things, but I think he is a proud man. I think he's very proud of himself. I think he thinks that there's a lot that he has done right in this world, and he's pretty proud of how he turned out. So to not receive the kind of recognition that he feels that he is owed really rankles him. And this is what he says. He said he was watching the wedding, and he said that I was jealous. I wish I'd been there. She was beautiful. It was incredible watching her. I cried a little bit about it. The whole world was watching my daughter. I was very happy about that. But the unfortunate thing for me is that I'm a footnote in one of the great moments of history, rather than Dad walking her down the aisle. And I think that he sort of exposes himself when he says that he's a footnote in one of the great moments of history, rather than being able to play out on the stage a key role in that moment in history. And I think that that's an interesting statement because it doesn't say that he is sad he didn't get, he does say, I wanted to be there, I saw Megan, but he finishes it with the truth. I wanted also to be recognized as the father of this amazing woman. He said that multiple times. He looks at Megan as being this incredible person, and he wants recognition for having created that. And he's going to go on to say even more things regarding how important he should be because she is all she is because of him, that he created her. He made her what she is. And where is his recognition? It isn't even so much that he's upset that she has ignored him and abandoned him. He is upset about that. But I think he also feels like he's lost out on this opportunity to be globally known as an incredible parent. And because he staked so much of his identity on being a parent, to miss this opportunity to be praised as a parent and to be recognized for all of his hard work in the field of parenting, that really upsets him. So there's a twofold grief here. My daughter's abandoned me, and I'm not getting the recognition as a phenomenal parent that I should. Because we know he didn't really parent Tom Jr. and Samantha all that well, because he was young when he had them. He had different financials when they were young, but also the weight and importance he placed on parenting and raising his children and being present. It didn't carry the same importance with him at that time. So I think that he had really wanted to remake who he was. I think there was probably some shame in how he'd raised his older two kids and had really wanted to redo that with Megan. And because he put so many eggs in that basket and because he had just poured his identity into being a dad to Megan, this is such a loss for him. It's like a public smackdown of him personally. Okay, well, his reason for giving the interview was pride, obviously. He said, I just want people to know I'm a normal guy. I'm a retired man, and I'm living a quiet little life, and then this happened. And a lot of things happened around it, but more than anything, I don't want my daughter or new son-in-law hurt by any of this. Okay, listen, this is his first interview that he goes out. He's still saying, he still seems to be good with the royal family. He's just disappointed and confused and disillusioned by how all this happened. He's presenting a much softer image now than he will. Watch the tone shift, okay? The angrier he gets, the uglier it gets. And even in the margin, as I'm reading, I wrote, ooh, I'm starting not to like this guy. I always felt like some sympathy for Thomas, and I still do, but I don't like the way he's dealing with the bitterness. I think it's a real bad look for him. Anyway, he says that he goes on to say that he wants a nice, normal relationship with his royal family. And he says that he hopes he hasn't offended them, and he doesn't think that he has. They know I love them, and I hope the royal family will understand my feelings as well. And he really thought that this interview was going to be seen as a peace offering. But why would it? Because already she's mad because you got any attention with those pictures. Those were not offensive photos. We've stated that many of the time. They're not offensive, okay? So for her to get upset, she wanted to be upset. She wanted to be mad. She wanted to be triggered. You talking to the media is something that Harry has repeatedly asked you not to do. So for you now to go to Piers Morgan and be like, let me get on Good Morning Britain and tell my tale of woe, this is not the way to make Meghan happy with you. For him to choose this avenue in which to, extend that olive branch to Meghan is delusional. And I think that he knew it was. He knew this was not going to make Meghan happy. But he's kind of as much of a manipulator of the facts as she is. Because he's going to do something he knows is going to make her mad. And then he's going to say, well, why did it make you mad? I was just trying to come out and say how much I loved you. But of course it's going to make her mad because you're coming out and essentially showing the world what a bad daughter you are. So for him to now play the innocent, like, I hope you see this as a peace offering. No, you don't think it's a peace offering. You're just tired of the narrative and you want to recreate it. You know you've already lost the relationship with her. So now you're going to do anything you can to regain your reputation. Just be honest about that. Just be like, she doesn't want to talk to me anymore. We don't have a relationship, but I would like to clear my name. I don't like the way I've been painted. I'd like to tell my side of the story, but I do realize my relationship with her is lost. That would have at least been honest. Well, friends of Meghan told the media that Thomas Markle's surprise appearance was beyond disgraceful because they felt that Meghan could come out and talk, but Thomas needed to shut it up. Just shut it down, old man. You don't get to talk. Why don't you go drink another can of beer? Of course, it's such a double standard. Why, if Meghan can talk, Thomas can talk. I mean, who are these friends of Meghan? What is this? He never does say who these friends of Meghan are, and he even puts that in quotes, so I don't know what he's suggesting there. Friends of Meghan. Is he saying that because they came out and spoke to the media, and apparently, according to Meghan, people who speak to the media are not her friends? Or is he suggesting that these friends of Meghan putting out statements may have been Meghan herself? Who knows? I'll let you decide. Okay, well, the following day, after this ridiculous interview, Meghan is seen riding in the third carriage at Ascot after the Queen. Later, she's seen laughing with Charles and Camilla. She apparently does not seem to be upset whatsoever about what Thomas Markle has done, or at least she's hiding it very well. But it seems like the real truth is that she thought she was still managing him. Okay, here's this little interview of my dad. He didn't seem angry or bitter, and she just figured that there wasn't ever really going to be a consequence to her not answering his phone calls and things like that. Meghan did not grasp the consequence of cutting herself off from her father and of spurning any notion of inviting him to London or even meeting him in Los Angeles. In Mexico, her stubbornness provoked another outburst. So to give that interview, thinking it was going to be some kind of jolt of reality and that somehow Meghan would be jolted back into coherency, it didn't happen. She's still over there living her royal life, and Thomas is outraged again. It's like, does this girl not care whatsoever about me? Why am I out here literally begging on TV for my daughter to pay attention to me, and she refuses? So now he decides he needs to go out again and speak again, and he's going to get her attention. Come hell or high water, he's going to get her attention. So the interview that Thomas gives again says that it put him in the penalty box, but he was not going to be silenced. He comes out and he says, if the Queen is willing to meet our arrogant and insensitive president, she has no excuse not to meet me. I'm nowhere near as bad. Apparently, Trump was scheduled to meet the Queen on July 13th in a visit to Britain. And 1 week later, after his calls continued to be blocked, Thomas admitted, I think that relationship is lost now. So he's out here talking to any outlet that will have him. And I mean, this is just a ridiculous thing. Well, the Queen is meeting with the president because she has to. I mean, these ties between politicians and the Queen, I mean, it's kind of part of her job. All right. So, I mean, this just sounds like the whining and moaning and complaining of somebody who is detaching themselves from reality. It's time to move on. And for him to be like, oh, I think this relationship is lost now. I think it's been lost for a while. I think when you were lying in your hospital bed and your daughter couldn't be bothered and wouldn't pick up the phone after you told her that you had just gotten out of surgery and her, fiance screamed at you and said that your heart attack was essentially your fault for being the scum of the earth. I think your relationship was lost a while back. I don't think this was when it happened. But this is the thing. His understanding of reality is delayed so he can keep doing what he wants to do, acting and functioning under the guise of his own ignorance. Like, I don't know what's happening. I'm not sure what's going on. I think there's still a chance. You know there's not. You just want to keep going out in front of the cameras. All right, this is what I'm saying, you guys. We're coming up to a point where I'm like, okay, the guy needs to get some friends and he needs to stop living by himself. Speaking to the media was becoming important to him. He decided to give interviews until Meghan talked to him. He also retained a lawyer to extract his share of the royalties, about $50,000 from Jeff Rayner. And this is the quote that I was like, oh, guy's got a couple of screws loose. Something's not okay with Thomas Markle. He says, I got screwed by Rayner, and I'm going to find a way to screw him over before I die. I want to tear him down. If they tell me I've got terminal cancer, then I'll kill him because I have nothing to lose. You can secretly think that, but maybe don't go out into the media and say it and then wonder why Meghan doesn't want to talk to you. Obviously, Meghan is not ignoring her father because of wild statements like this, but this is not helping the public understand your side of things. If you're going to come out and say these kinds of unhinged and detached from reality statements about how you fantasize about getting diagnosed with terminal cancer so you can go kill somebody as there won't be a consequence to you, it's starting to make sense why Meghan doesn't want to answer your calls. Then he goes on, he says, I could actually die soon, he told The Sun the following week. Does she want this to be the last thing we've said to each other? He goes on, it's probably the longest time I've gone without speaking to her ever. I just want to clear the air and tell her how proud I am of her. If I had one message for her, it would be, I love you and I miss you and I'm sorry for anything that went wrong. I'd like to put our differences behind us and get together. Yeah, but you're not acting in a way that is conducive to this. If he had decided to use some of this money that he's getting from all of these articles and fly over to London and made some contact with the palace, contacted Jason Kanoff and said, hey, I'm here, I'm in London. How could she have ignored him? What's he doing with this money he's making? They're not paying him nothing to talk. So why is he just continually talking to all these outlets when he could use the money to try to make amends? At this point, it feels like two people at the opposite ends of a football field screaming to each other and neglecting to just walk to the middle of the football field and have a conversation. They both know where the other person is. Okay, so go talk to them. Rather than resting his case, he spurned the father, lashing out at the royal family for their asinine anger about the paltry amount for Rayner's photos. Half of Britain, he said, seems to make a fortune selling pictures of my daughter and her husband. He could have earned $100,000 more if he wanted. And then this is where we're going to see him ramping up just petty, little snarky comments aimed at the royal family. Because now that he can't get Meghan to answer, he thinks maybe he can rile up the royal family enough to get them to answer. But apparently he doesn't know about never explain, never complain. These comments reflect a intellect that is struggling to articulate itself in any meaningful capacity. Because what he now says is just so petty and small that it's like, don't waste your breath, man. He goes, this ridiculous royal dress code doesn't make any sense to me. Meghan seems like something out of an old movie. Why in 2018 are you dressing like the 1930s? Why do you have to cover your knees? Okay, well, modesty is timeless. That's one answer. But also, it's just sort of like, why, what is that? What kind of stone is that to throw? Why are your knees covered? The royal family is stupid. 6 in stones, my friend. I mean, 6 in stones. What is this? Stony silence from Meghan sparked another outburst to the British media. Now he comes out saying, and you guys, this man is not making very clear connections here. He says 2 statements, and I'm like, you just answered your question, but he doesn't seem to be able to realize that he has. He says, my daughter is very controlling. She likes to be in charge. But I think she's terrified. I see it in her eyes. I see it in her face, and I see it in her smile. I know her smile. I've seen her smile for years, and I don't like the one I'm seeing now. This isn't a staged smile. This is a pained smile, and it really worries me. I think she's under too much pressure. There's a high price to be paid to be married to that family. So the question here is, why does she look like that? But you just finished telling me why. She's a very controlling person. She likes to be in control. If she looks pained, it's because she's lost her control. So why are you not making this connection? Why is it the royal family to blame? here. Why is the royal family to blame because your daughter can't fit into a culture that she has agreed to fit into when she said, I do, when she accepted that ring, when she got married to the prince? If she looks pained, why is it the royal family's fault? They never hid from her the reality of having to be part of their family. Yes, I know they bent a lot of rules, and I think they could have done an even better job of letting her know how bad it was going to be. Bad. I mean, I think for the rest of us, we'd be like, we'll capitulate to these demands. Thank you very much for the fame and fortune. But Meghan wants to act like this is this terrible persecution that has been placed upon her, that she just wanted to do some good in the world, and then she fell ass backwards into the lap of an evil, tyrannical family that is trying to pound every ounce of will out of her, and self-governance has now become not her right, but never will she ever see it again as long as she lives with these people. No more self-governance, no more self-will. It's all gone to the wayside now that she's met these villains. And he acts like somebody took her hostage. Okay, if that's how you want to say it, but you agreed to every bit of it. Yet somehow it's the royal family's fault that she looks like this. It's the high price they ask.